one of the other controversial measures has to do with a measure you sponsored that would allow those agencies, those private agencies that give cash in exchange for the title of a car, title loans, to do business with cars from out-of-state locations in Virginia. In Maryland, they're not too happy about that because they say they think people are going to be running over to Virginia to do it. Why did you sponsor that bill?
Well, I sponsored the original bill that reined in and brought down significantly the interest rate. Before, they were charging 25% a month. The bill that I had last year, first off, we're not going to outlaw them. We've already got open-ended credit, which it comes to about 300 to 350%, and it's not regulated. So they could go that route, and they didn't have to come in with their car. They could come in and borrow that anyway. In addition to that, they can borrow on the Internet. Furthermore, before car titling came, or payday lending, these people were street borrowing. In other words, they borrowed $100 on Monday and they paid back $200 on Friday,
loan
which
sharks.
is 5,200% interest.
500% or your kneecaps in some cases.
That's correct. When I passed the bill last year that brought that interest rate down considerably from about 300% APR to about an average of 230, 235, and required that loan to be terminated at a year, either you get it paid up or you're going to lose the car. Most of the cars are clunkers. A lot of them, if they break down, the people just discontinue paying on the loans. And that happens apparently a fair amount of the time. But we did not realize, or we didn't believe, that it barred out-of-state people. They're going to borrow that money, Kojo, one place or another. And like I said, they can come into Virginia even without me changing the law and get revolving credit from these consumer finance.
We have one more call from that issue, identified as Delegate Glenn Oder. He's calling from Newport News, Virginia. You're on the air, Delegate Oder. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Kojo, and thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome.
It's no secret that Senator Saslaw and I are on opposite ends of the spectrum with regards to these high-interest loans that I think are being brought by lenders who are actually using predatory practices to keep people in a cycle of debt. My question is, we've heard speeches after speech regarding the debt that Virginia was going to go into as it relates to state borrowing for roads, obviously before it ultimately passed. But my question is, so if it's a bad practice for Virginia to go into debt to pay for roads, why in the world is it okay for us to allow businesses to make loans to people at over 200% interest when we know the people that they're loaning money to are already in financial trouble?
Senator Saslaw.
Well, first off, Glenn, how you doing? Glenn, you voted for 3202, if I'm not mistaken, which authorized $3.2 billion of that $4.3 billion in debt. As you know, I voted against it. So, quite frankly, people ought to be criticizing you if you're criticizing debt. All right? Now, the only thing I voted for this time, since we already had that debt, was to expedite the bonds at the back end of that 3202 up towards the front end. You voted for the whole kit and caboodle. I voted to take the general fund money out of there. You probably voted for putting general fund, of which 1/3 comes out of the public schools in your area, which drastically need that money a lot more than I do. So before you start casting stones, I'd tell you to get out of that glass house.
Delegate Oder, your turn.
Senator Saslaw, I would say that if I live in a glass house, go right ahead and throw stones at it. But my glass house says that people that get charged 235% interest is wrong. And the bill that you passed last year was a weak bill regarding the credit that you've taken for it today about how it reined in car title lenders. The question that I have is the only regulation in there that really did anything was it said that we wouldn't violate the trust of our bordering states by loaning against them. Many of our border states, D.C., West Virginia, Maryland, North Carolina, have all got predatory lending caps. And yet here we are with your bill. We now have invited all these other states to come here.
We're running out of time. Delegate Oder, allow me to have Senator Saslaw respond, then we do have to move on.
Well, I would simply say this, Glenn. First off, as you know, we have had open-ended credit for a long, long time. If we didn't have card title lending, they could come in. There are no controls at all on that. I haven't seen a bill come across from you, to rein that in. I did rein that in, and quite frankly, all the consumer groups that are complaining about this congratulated me on doing a good job last year. And furthermore, there was no prohibition in that bill about out-of-state. I don't know where you read that, but it wasn't in that bill. What we thought was that bill would allow for that. So you better go back and reread it.
Delegate Oda, thank you very much for your call.